You know that strange moment when you realize you're no longer counting every dollar in your head, not because you suddenly became rich, but because something inside you finally relaxed, like your brain stopped bracing for impact all the time. And you don't even remember exactly what happened. You just know that money stopped feeling like an emergency and started feeling like a system. That moment usually doesn't come with fireworks or celebrations, and nobody congratulates you for it. But it almost always shows up right after you cross your first real financial buffer. And for most people, that buffer sits right around $20,000. And what's wild is that most people think this number matters because of what it can buy, when in reality, it matters because of what it changes inside your head. Before $20,000, money feels fragile. Every decision feels loaded. Every unexpected expense feels personal, like the universe is testing you. You tell yourself you're being responsible, but deep down, you're mostly just reacting. Reacting to bills, reacting to stress, reacting to whatever problem shows up next. You're surviving, but after $20,000, something subtle but powerful happens. You stop living in reaction mode, and you don't even realize it at first. Instead of asking, what do I do if something goes wrong? You start asking, what do I want to do next? And that shift changes everything. This is where most people misunderstand wealth building. They think the big transformation happens at six figures, or when investments start throwing off noticeable returns, or when you finally feel rich. But the truth is, the most important shift already happened earlier, when you proved to yourself that you could build and protect a financial floor. Because $20,000 isn't impressive to post online. It's not flashy. It doesn't change how other people see you, but it completely changes how you see yourself. Before this point, you might save sporadically, invest inconsistently, and constantly feel like you're one mistake away from losing progress. After this point, saving stops feeling like deprivation and starts feeling like leverage. You're no longer trying to escape stress. You're trying to optimize peace. And here's where everything changes even more. Once you cross $20,000, money stops being something you chase and starts becoming something that compounds emotionally, not just financially. Your confidence shifts, quietly but permanently. You stop feeling rushed. You stop feeling desperate. You stop making decisions just because you're afraid of missing out or falling behind. You start slowing down, thinking longer term, weighing trade-offs instead of reacting to pressure. And that calm, that's addictive. Because now when an unexpected expense shows up, it doesn't hijack your entire month. It's annoying, sure, but it doesn't derail your sense of stability. Your car needs repairs, your phone breaks, a medical bill pops up, and instead of panic, you feel irritation followed by resolution. You handle it. You move on. That emotional stability frees up something incredibly valuable, mental bandwidth. And mental bandwidth is where real wealth is built. When you're constantly stressed about money, your brain is too busy protecting you to help you grow. But once that stress eases, you start seeing patterns, opportunities, and inefficiencies you were blind to before. You start noticing how much your fixed expenses actually cost you over time. You start questioning whether certain purchases are adding value or just filling emotional gaps. You start understanding opportunity cost in a way that feels real, not theoretical. This is why everything accelerates after $20,000. Not because your returns suddenly explode, but because your decision-making improves. You stop optimizing for short-term comfort and start optimizing for long-term freedom. And here's something that surprises a lot of people. After $20,000, you actually start caring less about small expenses. Before that point, every coffee, every subscription, every impulse purchase felt dangerous because it threatened your stability. After that point, you realize those micro decisions don't really matter nearly as much as the big ones. The real wealth killers aren't lattes. They're leases, lifestyles, and long-term commitments made without margin. So instead of stressing about $5 choices, you start focusing on five-figure decisions. Where you live, what you drive, how flexible your career is, how much risk your lifestyle can tolerate. That's a massive upgrade in thinking. Your relationship with work changes too, and this is one of the most underrated effects of hitting this milestone. When you don't have savings, work owns you. You tolerate more than you should. You accept conditions you hate. You avoid conflict because you can't afford disruption. But once you have a real buffer, even if you never touch it, the power dynamic shifts. You're no longer working just to survive. You're working to build. You speak more confidently. You push back when something feels unreasonable. You negotiate without fear because you know you're not trapped. And the crazy part is, this often leads to more income, not because you worked harder, but because you showed up differently. Confidence compounds too. But here's the part where a lot of people mess this up. They hit $20,000, feel that internal shift, and assume the work is done. They reward themselves by upgrading their life until the buffer quietly disappears. And suddenly the stress creeps back in heavier than before, because now they know what calm feels like, and they've lost it. That $20,000 isn't a finish line. It's a foundation. It's the thing that lets everything else grow safely. When you protect it, even modest income growth feels powerful. When you destroy it, even high income feels fragile. And once you truly understand that, your priorities change. You stop asking how fast you can make more money and start asking how resilient your system is. You stop chasing status and start chasing sustainability. You stop measuring progress by what you buy and start measuring it by how little stress your life produces. This is why everything changes even more after $20,000. Because you're no longer just saving money. You're building a version of yourself that thinks clearly, moves intentionally, and doesn't panic under pressure. That version of you makes better decisions almost by default. And over time, those decisions quietly stack. More freedom, more confidence, more peace. Not because you became rich overnight, but because you finally stopped living one unexpected expense away from chaos. That's the real milestone. And once you cross it, if you protect it, everything that comes after gets easier, calmer, and surprisingly faster. Progress doesn't shout, it whispers. And if you listen closely, $20,000 is usually where that whisper begins.